Hello, this is Kim from Ultimate Speaker, bringing you some more speaking strategies and ideas for how you can take your speaking skills to a whole new level. And I'd love to ask you a question. Do you remember when you were read stories when you were a child? You sat on mum and dad's knee, or maybe, grandma or granddad, and they read you a story. Do you remember how special that was? Stories, I know I do, because stories are such a beautiful way to really engage us. And it doesn't matter what age we are totally enthralled and engaged when we hear a story. In fact, and I brought this diagram with me so I could share it with you. This just shows you how stories just light up every single part of the brain. From the neocortex, all of the emotions, the amygdala at the back, every part of the brain is in fact fired up, ignited when it hears stories. And that's a beautiful thing to know, because when it comes to you speaking to in a conference or speaking to at a networking, a group, sharing your own personal story, or at a special occasion like a wedding or special function, then you can share stories and know that you are absolutely going to reach everyone in the room. So that's what I'd love to focus a little bit more with you on today. And I know we've covered some things on stories, but let's dive a little deeper around how you can do this to get that greater engagement, to really help get your message across. Because the thing is, with stories, it doesn't matter what the story is. It could be a metaphor, an analogy. It could be a personal story, a case study, a testimonial, even a poem or a quote. They're all different ways to actually share a way of getting your message across that's engaging all parts of someone's brain. And this is the thing, when someone hears a story, this is why it works. It's not only lighting everyone, all parts of the brain up. What it's also doing is it's helping people to put their own meaning to the message that you're sharing, their own meaning to the information that you're sharing. So it helps bring everything alive. And they know, and the thing is, they say, and this has been proven, that sharing facts and giving and telling people information, it just doesn't stick. Whereas stories do. Stories absolutely stay in people's minds, they stay in people's hearts. And when you think about it, think of the number of years that different cultures, Aboriginals and all the different native cultures, how they've actually shared stories to reach the next generation, to share the skills and the things that they wanted to pass down through the different generations. It's through stories, through pictures. And this is why stories are so special and really important for you to be including in your talks, in your presentations, or wherever it is that you need to speak. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if you are a CEO or you're starting out in business, or you're, as I say, a personal occasion. It doesn't matter what level you are. It's how you bring in that story. It's choosing the story that will reach that particular audience, that will work for that audience, so that they can give it the meaning they want, take it into their hearts, and come on the journey with you, in fact. So it brings us alive. It helps us engage. It helps keep us engaged with the information you're sharing. And it helps people to remember. And it also reduces, there can't be any conflict when you share a story, because people are just putting their meaning on a particular story. So it doesn't leave any room for any conflict. We're not giving or telling someone where they might object. There's no resistance, because a story is a story. People put their own connotation on it, they put their own specialness on it, and then they remember it from there. So the part that I would love to share with you today is specifically around analogies. Now, analogies are very beautiful, because what they do is they take something that's a new concept and you relate it to something familiar. So it's like you're creating a connection bridge between the familiar to something that's new for them. And so how we do this is we take things like, for example, a cake. Let's do a cake. So a cake, when you think about it, has all these different ingredients that go into a cake. Now, we have flour, we have butter, we have sugar, we have chocolate, we have different flavors like vanilla essence, for example. Now, if we were to leave out any of those ingredients, especially some of the main ones like the flour, the butter, the eggs, we're going to create a different type of cake. So let's relate this to some information. For example, speaking. So your speaking skills. When I'm sharing a content piece in my trainings, I explain how we have a framework, and when we want to reach all the 9 learning styles, we want to engage everyone in the room, it's about putting your information into a framework. Now, here's the thing. If I was to relate this, and you can use this for your industry as well, relate this to baking a cake, and you talk about leaving out some of the ingredients, this could be likened to speaking to a group. Leave out some of the framework and the ingredients when you're presenting your information and the framework that you're presenting it in, and you have a different presentation. You're not going to have as big an engagement with your audience. The same message isn't going to be portrayed because some of the ingredients have been left out. Okay, so that's one example. Another example might be a garden. Okay, so a garden, when you think about it, plants need different things. People are familiar with gardens, so that's that's the analogy you can liken it to. So there is the sun, the plants, the soil, is it part shade? What type of pH do the plants need? There's all these different aspects of a garden that we need to consider. So now what we can do, that's the thing that people are familiar to. So take it across to, for example, now, here we go. I was working with an organization, a restaurant just recently, and they have cooking classes. They do the cooking schools. Now, what happened was they were wanting the attendees to realize that using authentic ingredients would actually help the taste and the flavors of the food that they were cooking. So what they did was we likened it to having a garden and growing the authentic vegetables and herbs in your garden and the conditions that a garden needs, all the authentic pieces of that. Now, if we were to, now there's one particular ingredient, for example, is cardamom. Now you can get the false cardamom and you can get the true cardamom. Now both will work in cooking. However, the false cardamom actually doesn't have quite the same flavor and richness and sweetness that the true cardamom does. So in the cooking school, what they were doing is saying, the different aspects of the garden, bring in the different ingredients, but it's important to bring the authenticity of those ingredients, try and get the word out, so that the food tastes better and delicious and rich and flavors of that Thai cooking. And one of the examples was the soy. So they used the example of soy. You can use the supermarket soy, or you can use the authentic Thai soy, and you get a different flavor, completely different flavor. And I know that because I've done the cooking school. So there's another example, using the analogy of a garden and the authenticity of growing a garden with all the different aspects and what it needs. What else is there? Let's see. There could be, oh gosh, okay, I made a couple of notes here. Ballroom dancing, here we go. Ballroom dancing, now that talks about the steps. When Chris and I, my husband and I, learned to dance, that's how we met. And we were doing ballroom dancing. So there were different aspects of ballroom dancing, but all of them had different stages and different steps to learn in order to create the dance. So whether it be a Latin dance, a ballroom, a modern dance, it could be a tango, it could be a rumba, it could be a Viennese waltz. Still, there needed to be the steps. And if we left any of the steps out, then we got a different dance. Making sense? So again, if you think about this, ballroom dancing could be used as an analogy for that, leave out the steps, but also the importance of the flow and grace and the movement of dance changes if we don't put certain things in place. So you might liken this to IT, or you might liken it to, well, anything in fact, where there needs to be a framework or a structure. Now, I did jot down a few other things. Have a think of these. Think of these from the perspective of your business and how you could use them. And some of the things I have here, if I can find the page, is what about train tracks? When you think about the train, so you can think about the train track, the train riding on the train tracks. There needs to be, for example, if we're wanting to travel to Sydney, but the train tracks go to across the centre of Australia to the WA, we're not going to be able to reach our destination because we're on the wrong train. So there we are. We can liken that to something that's familiar with train tracks. Another one might be riding a bike, something that people are familiar with, so we can liken it to that. Headlights on a car. You know, when you've got the headlights on a car, the headlights on the car can only go so far. We can only see so many meters in front of us. So if you imagine you're coming up to a corner, you're going round a corner and you're taking that, you can only see so far ahead. So you could liken something to maybe setting outcomes. How far could you see with your headlights? How far can you set your outcomes? I'm just thinking of things on the top of my head. Can you see the analogy though? What's another one? Oh yes, it could be the difference between driving a manual car and an automatic car. The difference between having an automatic motor mower and a manual pull-on motor mower. There could be just things that people, everyday things that people are familiar with. Relate that to what the new concept or the new ideas, the new information you're sharing, and there you've got the perfect recipe of an analogy. So I hope you've got some really great ideas from that. And if you've got any questions at all, like you've got any questions or you'd like to run a couple past me, then by all means, just private message me or even book in a complimentary session. Happy to go through that with you. And until next time, this is Momentum Monday. It's been fun having a chat to you. Let me know your thoughts. Love to hear from you. And you might even like to check out some of the upcoming live tours that are coming up, because there's some complimentary 2-hour tours coming up that will give you some more speaking skills, help you take things to a new level, and help you get your message out there, because that's what it's all about, isn't it? All right, until next time, bye now.